to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Emily Barkley, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Union High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, those types of things.
Sure. I actually am a proud Tulsa native. I grew up about 3 miles from where I work now. I was K through 12 here at Union High School. Played basketball and soccer here, and I didn't venture very far. I had a couple of opportunities to play some college athletics and chose to remain close to home. I went to the University of Tulsa, and they had a brand new sports administration program, and so I jumped at the opportunity to do that. And my first job, while I was in high school, my dad owned a restaurant, Amazio's Pizza, and so I worked for him. Shortly upon graduation from college, the corporate office is here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they hired me to work for the corporate office, which I did for about 9 months, and then moved right back home here at Union, and I've been here ever since.
How many years at Union?
I am getting ready to start my 22nd.
And I assume, since it's your alma mater, that you must be steeped in legend there.
I don't know about that, but I must have secrets on people for them to keep me around this long. No, I like to tell people I had such an incredible high school athletic experience from the coaches that I got to learn from and my teammates, that it was a place that I really didn't want to stray very far from. And when that opportunity presented itself for me to come back here, I jumped all over it and really have, planted further roots and let them grow and been here ever since.
Perfect. Let me ask you about your younger years, if you had a chance to play a lot of youth sports before you got to junior high and high school.
What I thought, yes, I did. I played, I think I started basketball in 4th grade, which is crazy to think about now, because I have a 9-year-old who's going into 3rd grade, who's been playing basketball since kindergarten. And, I thought, yeah, I had started early, but I played basketball. Of course, soccer started probably when the time I could walk and kick a ball around. I did both of those sports. Those were really the only two. I did run track for a year or two while I was waiting for school soccer, kind of to bide my time before we offered school soccer here. But I was able to play club and school, both soccer and basketball, throughout my high school career.
That's excellent. Let me ask you a question that, not on the questions that I sent you, because
Sure.
I'm interested. You have to be old enough, if you've been at the school teaching for 22 years. I have no idea how old you were, but give me your recollections of that tragic Tulsa bombing all those years ago, way back in the 90s, I think.
Right. It was Oklahoma City, so not too far down the road from us, about 90 minutes. I was actually at the University of Tulsa in I believe I was in grad school at that time. And I remember my parents had gone to play golf somewhere 45 minutes away. And, they had given me a call and said, kind of check out the news, something, a plane crashed into no, actually, I take that back. I was thinking of the 9/11 ones.
Yeah.
No, I was actually, yes, I was in school here with the bombings. And I believe that was, if I'm not mistaken, 95. And so I was I was a high school junior. Yeah. And Yeah, it was terrifying. But in the moment, I don't think anyone um realized what it was. And to look back, I think I would have probably been more terrified now knowing what it was. But it definitely hits close to home. I did not know anybody or know any, you know of, but again, I think the older I've gotten, I would have thought more that was, wow, that was really, really close to home, even though, at that age, I don't think it sunk in at the time.
And allow me to ask, I realize it was Oklahoma City and it's but fairly close. It's like you're right next to each other, like you said, 40 minutes. Does it have then an effect on Tulsa as much as Oklahoma, do you think, Oklahoma City?
I think it does. I obviously when we go into that, over to the city, they have a really incredible memorial for it, which just, if you're in the area, it's something that you have to go see. It's pretty moving to see it all. Um, I think obviously it probably affected people who live in that area and work in that area, because I'm going to guess they knew somebody or knew of somebody in the family that had it more so than we might in ours. But yeah, I mean, anytime a tragedy, especially, like the one that just recently has been ongoing in Texas, I think the closer you are to it, the more it causes pause. Obviously having a 9-year-old daughter, this one that's just recently, the flooding, has done the same thing for me, because
Mm,
I'm, the mom of somebody
sure.
that age that has been in there. So I'm sure, when you have those connections, it hits a little bit harder, but it is a powerful reminder when you get to go by and see it, and see the audio and the sounds, and what they've done with that site as well.
Certainly. Let me ask you another unscripted question before we get
Sure.
back to the script. So, on a lighter note, then, uh, what's it like to be in Oklahoma and celebrate the recent NBA championship by the Thunder?
Oh my gosh. So I mean, this is bad to say. I'm not even a huge NBA fan. I've always been a very big college basketball fan. My husband's a college basketball coach, NCAA Division II school, not far from here. And I've always loved the aspect of college. You get a player for 4 or 5 years, which of course is out the window these days. So I've never really been one, but we've also never had a professional sports organization to get behind. And so I will tell you, I've gotten to go to a few of those games. I didn't go to any this year, but I was able to last year. And the energy from obviously having a successful team is so contagious. Like I'm sporting around a Thunder, NBA championship shirt now. It just kind of makes it easy to become a fan. And I really feel like I've had the opportunity to hear the head coach speak at a couple of different occasions here in Oklahoma. He's spoken to our Oklahoma athletic directors group at our conference a few years ago, and then most recently, we all went to the Thunder organization and heard him speak. And just hearing how incredibly down to earth he was then, I hope he is now after that as well. Just really made you want to cheer for him even more. So they were an easy team to get behind, and it's been cool around here. People are flying flags and wearing shirts, and there's been a lot of excitement.
That's awesome. That's great. Let's get back now and let me ask you about some of the mentors and leaders you've had in your life that have made a huge difference for you.
Sure. Obviously I know a lot of people start with their parents, but I really, my mom and dad have been so instrumental, for me. In all honesty, I couldn't do what I do if I didn't have, the parents that I have, just, helping me raise my daughter, having my husband with his schedule and myself with my schedule. But I also got to witness my dad being one of the very most hardest working person I've ever seen. I got to see my mom as a working mother, as an example. And then I was very, very lucky to have a high school basketball coach that I just really connected. She was a female, and I really connected with her while I was at the University of Tulsa. I was kind of like a volunteer student coach. And, she allowed me to do things then as a 19, 20-year-old, in terms of asking my input and really kind of I think, fostering a leadership in me that I didn't necessarily realize that I had. I guess I'm what you would call like a quiet leader. I'd rather do the right thing, stand in the background, observe, and then step up when needed. And so I think she allowed me to do that. And then the choice to go to the University of Tulsa just was, I think everything fell into place like it was supposed to. Judy McLeod, another female athletic director at the University of Tulsa at the time. And so I got to sit and watch that. When I went there, there was a lady in charge of the sports management program. So the year I went in 1996 was the first year they had women's basketball back, female athletic director. And then I was taken on a tour by a female who, Oklahoma at that time there were a lot of Title IX lawsuits going on. Just the inequity of baseball to softball more was the big one, the most noticeable one. And there were a lot of high schools in the area getting, what I would call investigated, sued over, the baseball team having a very lavish facility for the time and the softball team playing at the local park or something. And so at that time, there was a female that worked there that just said, we're going to need a lot of women in this profession. And this is, a really good time. And those words kind of resonated with me. And so I think those people that they were put in my path and helped navigate were very instrumental in giving me, I guess, the confidence to think, well, yeah, I can go do this and I can go be. And so that was actually what I pursued, their sports administration degree. And then I stayed and got my master's of business administration while I was a graduate assistant for the University of Tulsa's football team at that time.
Well, now let me then ask you what it was like to be a female as a GA for the football team, because that doesn't happen often.
Right. So I was actually with the academic services, and they required all freshmen to have an academic advisor. And so I had all incoming freshman football players. It created a lot of relationships between myself and the staff, obviously, because they're the ones saying, how's this kiddo doing in this class, or what are they not? Or I'm the one having to say, well, I think this one's slipping, and they got to do that. But it created a lot of relationships for me that allowed me to have some opportunities over the years, and just, again, relationships with certain, coaches that have gone on to do other things. The boss who hired me here at Union in 2004 ended up being the head coach at the University of Tulsa for football. And he tried to get me to come over and be his director of football operations, which at that time, I thought, man, there's probably not a lot of females in that role either. But I kind of chickened out at the last minute. I didn't want to necessarily tie myself to someone else's success in that role. If you do really well, you move halfway across the country, and if you do really bad, you get fired. And and where I was working at the time, I was the assistant AD at that time, and our administration here said, if you'll just hang on tight, we have big plans for you. And so I trusted that. And within a year, I was the athletic director. So it was probably a good move just to stay put. But, those were the relationships and the opportunities that came from getting to work with that program.
Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Emily.
Sure.
What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
So, failure, I don't know, this probably isn't the same. Maybe regret is, for me, is a bigger, my husband will tell you, I'm not a huge risk taker. I'm very calculated. And so, those big time failures may not show up because I'm probably not going to take that big time risk. But I think for me, I had some opportunities to play college basketball, which would have required me to move away from my home, get out of my comfort zone. And I just chose not to do that. And, part of me every day, especially when I see our kids here at Union go on to the next level, And you think, man, 4 years goes by so fast. And at that time, 4 years seemed like an eternity to me. And so I didn't think I could take that leap or make that jump. And looking back, I kind of wished I had. I stayed in my comfort zone. I lived at home my first 2 years. I worked with my high school. Did it provide the opportunities I have now? Probably, but you just never know what might have been had you gotten that opportunity to create those relationships on a deeper level through sports. And I think that's probably for me, maybe not a failure, but maybe more of a regret in that area.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you a little bit more. You got into education. Were you an assistant AD the first year? So talk about when you first got into education after you graduated and your road to becoming an athletic administrator.
Sure. When I was a senior here at Union, we had an athletic director who I just really admired. I felt like he was at the top of his game then. I thought we were doing things at Union that other schools weren't doing, and he was really influential in me. And as a seventh grader, even he would come watch our games, and he was there to cheer us on. And I'm thinking, what person comes to seventh grade girls basketball games or eighth grade track meets, and his presence really intrigued me. So whenever I was a senior, I was able to be an aide in the high school, and I would just walk on down and sit in his office every day, just telling him, "Hey, I want to take your job someday. I want to take your," and I'm sure he was having one of those days, and he said, "Well, you can have it now. You can have it now." And so I stayed connected with him, and at the time, our head football coach was our assistant AD, and he was the gentleman who hired me back here at Union, and I knew. So I knew I was very intentional when I went to the University of Tulsa. The athletic administration was what I wanted to get into. I don't think I knew whether it would be on the college level or the high school level, or if it was going to be, at a AA ballpark, AAA ballpark, like the Drillers here in Tulsa or something like that. I just knew what brought joy in my life, which was watching people compete or being a competitor myself and trying to figure out any way that I could get connected to that. So while I was a GA and an undergrad at TU, I volunteered for any and every sporting event that they had. I worked, we hosted the NCAA Women's Golf Championships, and I volunteered, and I was a tournament director for our tennis. We have a really nice, at the University of Tulsa, indoor outdoor tennis facility. So they just brought tournaments after tournaments after tournaments. And so I would serve as the tournament director. We had the WAC basketball championships back then that I would work at, and all the football games. So I just surrounded myself in those events and got some experience of watching people do it without the pressure of it being on me. I mean, I was the person who was back then calling in the score during the basketball tournament to the national press, saying this is the halftime score. But I got to see the ins and outs of the whole operation, which provided to be a very good experience for me. When I graduated, so I went straight through 6 years at TU with my undergraduate and my master's, and again, the Mazio's Corporation, the pizza place. The president was good friends with my dad, and he said, "I know this isn't her dream job, but have her come over here, get her off your payroll, get her own insurance. And then if something were to happen, we understand that she may need to take that job." And so I did that for about 9 months when Coach Blankenship, who at that time had been the assistant AD and head football coach, was now the AD at Union. And he said, "I've got a spot for you." He's like, "It's going to be like an assistant athletic director." And I said, "What do you mean like at that time, I probably would have taken any position. And he said, "Well, you're going to be in charge of our cheer, pom, and dance programs. It's going to be called the spirit coordinator, but you're really an athletic director. It's called." So he got me in with that, which I had never done in my whole life. And I remember my first board meeting I went to, and my superintendent, she had been the superintendent here whenever I played, and she said, "Well, yeah, we've hired, Emily Warren at the time," my maiden name, and and somebody goes, "Oh man, you have the hardest job in the district," because it was those cheer mamas and it was, the spirit mamas. And so
I
I
totally
kind of
understand.
laugh because, I was 23, 24 when I took that job, and it was, baptism by fire. It was coaches in my office the day I started. It was mad parents. It was everything. And I probably started out with some thin skin, and I only had to be in charge of the whole spirit program for 2 years before we were able to build upon it. And I became a full-fledged assistant athletic director then. But I think those 2 years just really probably matured me in ways from a toughness standpoint, from nothing's going to phase me standpoint at this point. And so I was an assistant AD. So yes, I stepped straight into it. It was a administrative role. And I did that at age, I think, 24. And I was an assistant AD for 7 years, and then I've been the athletic director ever since.
That's awesome. So let's talk about when you first became the assistant AD. Speak to our audience about how the job of athletic administration has changed since you first got into it.
Sure. Some of it has stayed the exact same, the long hours, the events that, I tell people it's a lot like Groundhog Day, except for a year. You start back in August and you're starting it all over again. But I think for us, the biggest change has been somewhere along the way, social media was introduced. It was not here whenever I started. And I say social, from the Twitter or from X and all that stuff. Streaming events wasn't. So the advertising, kind of exploded in a way that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of. Of course, now you're talking about, transfers, NIL, stuff like that we're still navigating all of those. But I would say it has most definitely changed the landscape of it. Back then you would try to think of ways to promote kids. Now it's very easy to promote them through social media or through these online platforms. And so, it's changed drastically, some for the better, some I would probably old school in me, the loyalty factor, the transfer stuff hasn't really been necessarily my favorite, but we're adjusting to everything. But yeah, there's aspects that have stayed exactly the same, and then of course those areas have changed.
Let's thank you for that response. Let's talk for a minute about your journey with the OIAAA. When did you first become involved, etc.? And then, of course, on to the NIAAA.
I would say, I'm probably not going to get the dates right. I would say probably about 15 years ago, the AD right before me had decided to serve on the OIAAA board. And the meetings were in Oklahoma City. And so he would drive that way, and he would tell myself and we had another assistant, he was like, "Why don't you guys just come with me? We'll go have lunch afterwards." And so I found myself, kind of dragging along and seeing these. And then I'm kind of one of those, like I said, I step back, I watch, and then I thought, man, the treasurer at the time was stepping away. I think it was treasurer and secretary position together. And I was like, man, I can do that. I can sit back, I can take notes, and I can balance the checkbooks and handle the finance. And so I was able to get on the board that way, and shortly thereafter took over as the AD here. But everything was fairly seamless. And I served in that role for quite some time, and then moved over, I believe, did the president-elect, past president role, and now have slipped into for our board to a liaison to the NIAAA, which is actually going to be very easy for me now with the upcoming position on the board here at the end of December. And so it's been a 15-year journey of being a part of that. And we, about 7 years ago, started our own conference through our athletic directors organization. And I got to be a part of that from the ground up. And so that's been good. And that's allowed me to meet a lot of people, from the NIAAA that we would bring in, as well as all the conferences. I've been attending all of the AD conferences, the national ones, since I've started, other than, 2 or 3 for family obligations or the online one that we had with COVID. So that's been my involvement from the UIAAA side.
Perfect. So if I heard you correctly, you are taking Oklahoma's spot on the NIAAA board coming this December.
Yes. So it is our section's turn for Oklahoma to have the representative there. And so I will, it's kind of funny because the, I guess, appointment was like over 2 years ago. So everybody, it's been something that has been long talked about. Well, she's getting ready to go on the board. Well, she's getting ready. And I feel like we've been saying that for so long, but really it is right around the corner. And we're making plans for the last day of the conference will be my introduction into the new 3-year position of being a board member.
Perfect. I'm so happy for you. You've got that
Thank you.
preliminary meeting on Friday, and then you've got to go to the wrap-up meeting on Wednesday morning, and
Yes.
you'll find this interesting. I served on the board years ago, and the last year I served on the board, my mentee was Michael Schneider from Oklahoma.
Oh, yes.
So his first year on the board, my last year on the board, so we have that connection.
Yes, yes. And we love him. He's still on our OIAAA board and as a Section 6 rep, but we love it because when there's questions, the landscape for the athletic director, I think I am probably for sure in the Tulsa area the longest tenured athletic director, just because people change positions and are getting out and are moving.
Right.
But Mike Snyder, who has been there, and I don't mean to like aging, but much longer than I have. And so we're able to lean on him when we want to start a Hall of Fame for our organization. And, some of us don't know the contributions that people made prior to us being there. And so it's really nice to be able, and he's definitely Hall of Fame material. So it's definitely nice to have somebody to lean on with that.
Perfect. And do you have any stories to share about 2 previous guests on this podcast, Stephanie Blackwell and Dustin Smith?
Yes, of course. I have the privilege of working with Stephanie every day. She is an assistant athletic director here at Union with us. But I also was able to, our conference, she used to be the athletic director of Bixby High School, and which was in our conference. And there's more females than there were now, or than there were then. But when Stephanie and I kind of stepped into our roles, there weren't very many. And so it was very easy to, lean on each other. And we've been so blessed to be able to have her with us for the last 3 years, and just a wealth of knowledge. And then her passion for serving the NIAAA obviously is something that's contagious. And when you think you can't, she shows you can. And so that's been really good for both of us to be able to work side by side. And then of course Dustin, I mean, we go back. My husband is, like I said, is the head basketball coach at Rogers State, and they played, they do now, but they back before, right when we got married, they played in a conference called the Heartland Conference, and the University of Arkansas Fort Smith was in that same conference, and Dustin was the athletic director
and he was there. Yep.
And so I got to meet him. Union, we have a 5,400 seat basketball arena, and they would host their conference basketball tournament here at Union. So when he was the athletic director for UFAS, he got to know me because he would help run the event. And so his joke is to tell my husband that I'm his favorite Barkley. And but I've actually, gotten to know him, and then through the course of him going to Greenwood and then now Broken Arrow, which is 7 miles away from us, them being the largest school in the state and us being the second largest, and we're in the same conference, and now we're going to serve on the board together. It's really been great for me. He's a big advocate and cheerleader for you, and he just really uplifts you. And so just having both of them, obviously, again, with their passion for serving and their passion for being involved, it makes it really easy to want to join them and go along for the ride with them.
Thank you for sharing that, and shout out to Michael, Stephanie, and Dustin. Let me ask you about your observations regarding the recent NIAAA conferences. By the time this airs, it will have been 8 months ago, but the recent conference
Sure.
in Austin. Talk about that.
Yeah, that was I always enjoy my time at the conferences. The timing has always been dictated by my husband's schedule, us having a daughter, shifting her, but I've also been able to have my parents travel with me and bring her along to see. And this year was pretty special for me, receiving the DSA award and getting to have all three of them there. My husband he had a game that day and couldn't make it. So having them there and, having a daughter, get to see her mom do that, get to see again, that it's okay to have a full-time passion and job and be full-time mom as well. So that one made this one extra special, but I always enjoy the connections, and I feel like year in and year out, having served on committees and getting to know people, and even getting to know people through Dustin's relationships and Stephanie's relationships and Jason Kohler. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet Jason. He's another favorite of ours here in Oklahoma. But even their relationships and the people they know, just every time I go, I feel like the experience gets better and better because your network of people grows, and you run into people that you haven't seen or you've only seen on Zooms, and it's fun to see them in person.
Right.
So I would just say that, that was one of my favorite parts about this past year, and I think it'll just continue to grow as the years go on.
Well, thank you. And I know that's a special moment, having received the DSA myself. Of course, I'm dating myself. It was years and years ago, but to have your daughter there and your parents there is very special. What's the favorite part of your job, Emily?
So it's weird to say, I love watching kids set goals. And then I don't like watching them fall short, but I like watching how they respond when they do fall short, or achieve them. State championships are not easy to win. We've been blessed to have, in 22 years that I've been here, we've had over 90. And when you step back and think about that, the amount of kids, however, in the last several years, we haven't. And so there's a high standard. And then there's an opportunity to watch how kids respond to that. And then to step back the older I get and realize how unimportant that goal is in and of itself. But the hard work to get there, how you respond to that adversity, and then, building those relationships with the coaches and the kiddos. I don't get to, we are a large school. We have 111 coaches. We have, programs. We have 5 campuses with our 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, so they're all spread out. So I don't get to interact with kids every single day. So I feel like my job is to have that relationship with the coaches to allow them to have those relationships with the kids. But, I try to, even today, we have a snow cone shack that's not very far, and our fall sports have started. So I ran over there and met the softball team and rewarded them for having to be here this summer already while the rest of their peers are on a break. And we got snow cones, and that was fun. But I think it's just witnessing them go through adversity, overcome adversity, setting whatever that goal is, and watching how they react from the outcome of, their hard work, and it proves that even hard work doesn't always get you the outcome that you're hoping for, but watching them grow throughout the process.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. Let's finish up with a couple of questions, Emily. The first being this. You have 2 suggestions for a brand new athletic administrator, and they have to follow your suggestions in order to be a success. What would your 2 suggestions be?
And I know this is easy to say, but get involved. No matter where it is, what you're doing, whether it's on your school district's level, if there's ways to branch out, if it's on your state level, if it's on the national, just find a way to get involved and get connected, because I think you can lean on and learn so much from other people. And then the second side of it, which, as I say, be involved, now I'm also going to say be present. So if you do decide to choose to serve, be present in what you're doing there. Be present when you're home. I don't do a good enough job of that necessarily, just because of the need to feel like I'm finishing this before I can do something else. But when you're with your family, because I think you can always find something that you could do for work. And so having that off switch once you get home and being present there, being present, if you're having dinner with your family, if you're having dinner with your co-workers, just whatever it is, just kind of creating that time for it. It can be overwhelming. I do like to tell people, I'm not sure I would advise a 23, 24-year-old to step into the athletic administration yet. I for sure think that because you can experience burnout at some point. Those are a lot of hours. This is what I like to tell them. It's Monday nights, it's Tuesday nights, it's Thursday nights, it's Friday nights. It's about 5 Saturdays in the fall, 5 Saturdays in the winter, 5 Saturdays, and so that can be overwhelming. So I like to say, if you're at a stage, coaching, finish the coaching part. If you're at the stage where maybe your family is young and you don't feel like you can devote it, there is going to be a path and an avenue at some point, and don't rush it. Now, if that's what you want to do, that was what I wanted to do. I don't think I was made to necessarily coach or teach. And so the administrative side was what was really fueling me. But I kind of tell them, slow down, be present, enjoy that moment. There is a reason there's a lot of people are athletic directors for the last 15 years of their career, not the full thing. But that there will be options and opportunities for that.
Thank you. We'll finish with this. Emily, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Oh, goodness. Let's see. I don't know. I feel like you're well versed in this. I feel like I kind of gave a glimpse of, who I am. I think, a little bit along the line with the suggestions for new ADs. I think it's probably anybody who wants to get into this. If like, for example, for me, finding a spouse that understood my passion and my job was very, very important to me. And then having people that I could count on, don't be afraid to ask for help type of thing. I think that's what has been the key to my success. I know my husband and I wanted more than one child and we weren't able to. And it's kind of looking back, I'm thinking there was a higher power saying there is no way you guys could run the schedules you did the things you've done, and do that. And so just consider myself very blessed. I am very thankful for the people who gave me the opportunity to get started in it. And I'm very thankful for, we have one of the most supportive school board and superintendents. I've worked for 3 superintendents now. All 3 are extremely passionate about sports and extremely passionate about having kids, all co-curricular activities, having kids be plugged in to something. And I think that's the key to it as well. And then just, surrounding yourself with those colleagues, the Dustin Smiths, the Stephanie Blackwells, the Joe Redmond, who's my associate athletic director, that allow you to do what you do. They make me look good because of the things that they're doing as well. And I just consider myself very blessed.
Well said. On that note, that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Emily Barkley, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at her alma mater, Union High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Emily, can't thank you enough for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.